They told her she didn't belong. A quiet woman walked into a luxury boutique, no diamonds, no designer outfit, just grace. The staff took one look, and turned her away. They didn't know she was the mother of Michael Jordan. The woman who raised the greatest basketball player of all time. What happened next? Michael didn't yell. He didn't make a scene. He walked in, and changed everything. A moment of judgment became a movement of respect. And the lesson he delivered? It wasn't about money. It was about dignity. Want to know what Michael did that left an entire store speechless? And inspired millions across the world? Watch the full story now on Behind the Billions. And don't forget to subscribe for more powerful true stories that go deeper than the headlines. They didn't recognize her. But they would soon regret it. The sun shone brightly over downtown Chicago as shoppers bustled in and out of stores along Michigan Avenue. High-end boutiques, fashion houses, and luxury storefronts lined the street, each trying to outdo the other with elegance and exclusivity. Among them stood a store known for its status symbols, designer handbags, fine jewelry, and an attitude of prestige. That afternoon, a woman walked in quietly. She wasn't wearing flashy clothes or dripping with diamonds. Her outfit was tasteful, simple slacks, a soft cardigan, and practical shoes. She didn't arrive in a Rolls-Royce or with a security entourage. In fact, you might not have noticed her at all. But if you really looked, you'd see the grace in her posture. The confidence in her eyes. The kindness in her smile. Her name was Dolores Jordan, and yes, the mother of basketball legend Michael Jordan. She had come in looking for a gift. Her granddaughter's birthday was coming up, and she wanted to buy something truly special. Something memorable. But before she could even take a step past the entrance, a store associate intercepted her with a look of polite skepticism. "Excuse me, ma'am," the young woman said, "can I help you?" Dolores smiled warmly. "Yes, I'd love to see your handbag collection." The associate paused, then said carefully, "Just so you know, our bags are quite high-end. We have some other stores down the street that may be more in your range." It hit her like a slap masked behind a smile. Dolores blinked. "I beg your pardon?" The woman shifted uncomfortably but doubled down. "We're a premium boutique, ma'am. Most of our pieces are thousands of dollars. We just want to make sure you find the right place." No offer to show her the bags. No welcome. Just a quick dismissal, based on nothing more than her age, her appearance, and the fact that she didn't look like the average customer. Dolores stood still for a moment. She wasn't angry. She wasn't going to make a scene. It wasn't her style. She simply nodded and said, "Thank you," before turning around and calmly walking out of the store. But the feeling lingered. That familiar sting of judgment. A quiet reminder that no matter who you are, or who your son might be, people still decide your worth in seconds. To the store staff, she was just another older woman with no designer labels. Someone who didn't belong. Someone they could brush aside. They had no idea she was the mother of a global icon. The woman who raised a boy who would go on to change sports history, build a billion-dollar empire, and become one of the most recognizable figures on the planet. They didn't recognize her. But they were about to learn just how powerful a mother's story, and her son's response, can be. Later that evening, the Jordan family gathered for a quiet dinner at one of Michael's favorite restaurants on the outskirts of Chicago. It was a cozy spot, nothing flashy, just good food and privacy, the way they liked it. Michael sat at the head of the table, laughing with his kids and trading stories like any proud father. His mother, Dolores, sat beside him, calm and collected, just as she always was. As the waiter brought out dessert, Michael leaned in and asked her casually, "So, how was your day, Mom?" Dolores smiled. "Oh, it was fine. I went shopping earlier, tried to find a purse for Jasmine's birthday." didn't quite go as planned. Michael raised an eyebrow. What happened? Dolores told him the story as if it were nothing more than a small hiccup in her day. The way the store staff looked at her. The comment about the bags being too premium. How they didn't even let her look around. She chuckled softly at the end, brushing it off with grace, as if to say, "It happens." But Michael didn't laugh. His expression changed. His smile faded. He sat back in his chair, processing the words. "Wait," he said, his voice lower now. "They turned you away?" She nodded, still trying to make it sound like it wasn't a big deal. "I suppose they thought I couldn't afford it." Michael stared at her for a long moment. This was the woman who raised him, supported him through every phase of his life, scraped together enough money to buy him his first pair of basketball shoes. The woman who taught him to never let anyone tell him he wasn't good enough. And some clerk had the nerve to treat her like she didn't belong? He set down his fork. His jaw clenched slightly. "Which store?" he asked. Dolores gave a little shrug. "Don't worry about it." But Michael leaned forward, unwavering. "No, really." "What store?" There was a pause, and she finally told him. Michael didn't say anything else that night. He didn't need to. Everyone at the table could feel the shift in his mood. It wasn't anger, it was something deeper. Disbelief. Disappointment. A simmering sense of injustice. Because to Michael, it wasn't just about bad customer service. It was about respect. About how easily people make judgments based on looks, class, or assumptions. And how even the woman who raised one of the most powerful athletes on the planet wasn't immune to that kind of treatment. Michael had faced doubters his whole life. He knew what it meant to be underestimated. But this time, it wasn't about him. It was about his mother. And for that, he wasn't going to let it slide. He looked at her and said calmly, but firmly, "Let me handle it." And with those 4 words, a quiet storm began to build, one that would soon sweep through that luxury boutique like a wake-up call the world would never forget. The next afternoon, just as the city buzzed with its usual weekday rhythm, the quiet doors of that luxury boutique swung open again. But this time, it wasn't Dolores Jordan who walked in alone. It was Michael Jordan. The moment he stepped through the doorway, everything stopped. Shoppers froze mid-conversation. A manager peeked from the back office. The same store associate who had dismissed Dolores the day before suddenly turned pale. You didn't need to be a sports fan to recognize that face. The GOAT. The man whose jersey had become a symbol of greatness across the globe. The 6-time NBA champion. The billionaire brand mogul. And here he was, walking in with quiet authority. No smile. No entourage. Just presence. The associate rushed over, her tone now giddy with manufactured charm. "Mr. Jordan. Wow, this is such an honor. How can we help you today?" Michael didn't play along. He didn't crack a smile or offer a handshake. He looked her dead in the eye and said, "I want to speak to the manager." The tone of his voice silenced the entire room. Within moments, the store manager appeared, anxious, confused, wiping his hands nervously on his suit. "Mr. Jordan, welcome. Please, is there something we can help you with?" Michael took a slow step forward and motioned toward the front door. And then, in walked Dolores Jordan. The woman who had been brushed aside. Ignored. Disrespected. She stood there with the same elegance she always carried, only now the world knew exactly who she was. Michael turned back to the manager and said in a low, clear voice, "Do you know who this woman is?" The manager stammered, glancing at her, then at Michael. I'm not sure." "This is my mother," Michael said. "The woman who raised me. Who worked 2 jobs so I could play ball. The woman who packed my lunch every day, prayed for me every night, and stood by me when I had nothing. He let the silence sink in. Yesterday, your staff told her she didn't belong here. That she couldn't afford what you sell. They judged her before she even spoke. The associate stood frozen, her earlier confidence now melted into embarrassment. Michael wasn't done. My mom came in here to buy a gift for her granddaughter. Instead, she left feeling small, because someone decided she didn't look luxurious enough. His voice cracked slightly, not out of anger, but emotion. She gave me everything I have. Every success, every shot I made, started with her. And if she's not welcome here, then neither am I. The manager began to stutter apologies, offering discounts, private service, anything to make it right. But Michael simply turned to his mother and said gently, "Let's go, Mom." As they walked out together, arm in arm, the entire store was left in stunned silence. In that moment, Michael Jordan reminded the world of a lesson far more valuable than anything behind those glass cases: true worth isn't worn. It's lived. And it begins with the people who raised us. They didn't just lose a sale that day. They lost something far more valuable: respect. As Michael and Dolores walked out of that store, there was no fanfare. No cameras. Just the quiet steps of a mother and son, bound not only by blood, but by values. In the car ride that followed, Dolores stayed mostly quiet, gazing out the window. But Michael could feel the weight she carried, even if she didn't say a word. This wasn't the first time she had been judged like that. And sadly, it probably wouldn't be the last. But this time, her son had the platform to do something about it. That night, Michael sat in his study. A room filled with championship memorabilia, family photos, and letters from fans around the world. He didn't reach for a PR team. He didn't call a publicist. He simply opened his phone and started typing on Instagram. "Today, my mother was told she didn't belong in a store. That she couldn't afford what was behind the glass. She smiled and walked away. I walked in the next day, not as a celebrity, but as a son. And I made it clear, if she's not welcome, I'm not interested. Let this be a reminder. You never know who someone is. Or who they raised." He didn't name the store. He didn't have to. Within hours, the post had gone viral. Tens of thousands of people flooded the comments. Some shared their own experiences, stories of being judged, ignored, or looked down on. Others praised his grace, his restraint, and most of all, his loyalty to the woman who raised him. Celebrities reposted it. Athletes, entrepreneurs, and even politicians weighed in. And while Michael appreciated the support, this wasn't about making headlines. This was about changing hearts. Behind the scenes, the luxury store issued a formal apology and offered to make a donation in Dolores Jordan's name. But Dolores, ever the woman of integrity, had a different response. She said, "Don't just donate. Do better." She didn't want a symbolic gesture. She wanted transformation. That's when the idea for the Respect First initiative was born. With Michael's full support, Dolores proposed a campaign focused on retraining luxury retail staff nationwide, not just in customer service, but in dignity. How to greet every person who walks in with the same level of kindness, regardless of what they wear, how old they are, or what they look like. Michael backed the initiative with both funding and his voice. "My mother taught me to treat the janitor like the CEO," he said in a press conference. "It's time the world starts living that lesson." And just like that, what began as an insult turned into a movement. A movement rooted in one truth: real luxury isn't stitched into a handbag, it's sewn into how you treat others. What happened next wasn't just about going viral. It wasn't about one store or one woman being disrespected. It was about millions of people finally feeling seen. As Michael Jordan's post continued to ripple across social media, something remarkable started to happen. Messages poured in from around the world, not just fans, but people from all walks of life. Grandmothers, students, single mothers, young professionals. So many had their own story of being dismissed, overlooked, or told they didn't belong somewhere based on how they looked. For once, someone stood up, not with anger, not with violence, but with quiet power and unwavering dignity. Retail companies began to take notice. One by one, major brands reached out to Michael and Dolores privately, acknowledging that the incident had sparked conversations they could no longer ignore. Many of them pledged to implement bias training, inclusive customer policies, and even create advisory boards to ensure their frontline workers understood the impact of their actions. But the real change came from the people. Schools started using the story in classrooms to teach empathy. Churches shared it during sermons. Even corporate leadership conferences included it in diversity and inclusion workshops. What was once a simple shopping trip became a living, breathing lesson in humanity. And at the center of it all stood Dolores Jordan. When asked later in an interview how she felt about the attention, she simply said, "I didn't want a spotlight. I wanted respect. For me, and for the next woman who walks into that store alone." That humility, that grace, is exactly what gave this story its power. Michael, too, continued to use his platform not just to amplify his mother's voice but to remind everyone watching that success doesn't excuse you from speaking up, it demands it. "It's not enough to win championships," he said at a youth leadership summit. "You have to win with character. My mom taught me that. And now I want to pass it on." The Respect First initiative went on to partner with organizations around the country. Workshops were launched. Training programs were certified. Even more importantly, conversations were started, around dinner tables, in break rooms, and on street corners, about how we treat one another when no one's watching. And for every person who's ever been judged too quickly, ignored too easily, or made to feel like they didn't belong, this story became a reminder that your worth isn't decided by your clothes, your bank account, or how loudly you walk in. It's decided by who you are. And sometimes, who you've raised. Because in the end, the greatest legacy isn't fame. It's love. And the courage to defend it, even in the quietest moments. So the next time you walk into a room, remember this. Never underestimate someone who walks with quiet dignity. They just might be the reason a legend was born.